Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you are well, or good evening, or good afternoon, or whatever time, day, season it is, wherever you are. Hi, sister. Welcome back to Around the Kitchen Table, the place where we talk about the things that no one else wants to touch because they matter too much to leave unsaid. My name is Laura. I'm the founder of Sacred Sister. Currently, if you're watching this, you can see, but if you're not watching this, I am just popping on an oil that I've blended. For those of you that don't know, I've been an aromatherapist for the last 30 years. Oh my God. Somebody posted something today on Marketplace, and it basically was like from the 1980s, and it was called vintage. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, I'm about to turn 50, right? And it's like, here I am, vintage, but you get better with age, right? Like good wine. Anyway, enough about that this morning. The reason I am using a beautiful heart-opening blend is because I am about to lean into something really big with you. And this is one that I have carried for a long time, carefully and quietly. And last year, I created a video around this, and I lost a few people over it out of our team, even. And I was surprised by that, by those particular people that walked away. But actually, I recognize that, the universe has a bigger plan. But I wanted to bring it to you because something happened. Here we go, the beautiful kind of triggering of last week's festival. Something kind of happened there, and it kind of brought it back to the surface for me. And obviously, we are in the process of selling tickets for our gathering, and so it always kind of arises for me at that time of year. So I want to kind of speak to you today about identity, safety, inclusion, and boundaries, kind of all in the same breath. And it can be really easy for the world to shout over us. But I've built Sacred Sister on the foundation of truth, not performance, not pretending. So today I really want to speak to you clearly, tenderly, and unapologetically about who we serve as a community. Because this is sacred work, and sacred work requires sacred clarity. At Sacred Sister, our spaces are for women, womb in women. Not just anyone who identifies that way, but those that were born into a female body, who live as a woman and carry the stories, wounds, and lived experiences of that path, who carry that lineage. And this is not a political statement. It's not an attack. It's not even a debate. It's just a deep truth that I had to sit with for a long time around safety, depth, and integrity in the healing spaces that I've spent my life creating. And I really want to share why, because when I say the word safety, it probably conjures up all sorts of realities of what you think I mean. So I want to kind of really lean into that today. And it's a brave conversation. It's a little bit scary because it's very easy to get torn down. But I want you to understand my deeper why. In our spaces, we go deep. We unravel the inherited pain of womb wounds, birth trauma, sexual violence, fertility, loss, periods, menopause, and centuries of women being silenced. And this work requires more than shared values. It requires shared lived experiences. And that's not to say other experiences aren't valid. They really are, but they're different. And in these circles that we create, it's the specificity of our shared story as women that creates the container for that healing. We don't exclude to reject in any way, and we create that boundary to go deeper. Let me be really clear. I have, over all of my years as a therapist, had the best relationship with the trans community. So the decision that I come from isn't from ignorance or fear or judgment. My experience with the trans community is full. I was a beauty therapist for many, many years, and I worked intimately with trans women through transition. Hair, makeup, waxing, wigs, nails, electrolysis, strapping, banding. I was the first person that many of them trusted to see fully. This morning I was just sticking on my nails because we're going out tonight, and I don't have nails. I bite my nails, good beauty therapist that I've been for years, recognizing it now as a trait of my ADHD because I can't even. Husband's like, get your fingers out your mouth. And I was sticking on my nails, and I was like, how many women do I know that do that? But how many people live their life every day that I've experienced in my lifetime that have to, that put on a mask to be who they are, or mask to show who they're not, right? Like, we've all done those things, and it really kind of brings it home to me, that and I don't take it lightly, that I had the most amazing experiences when I was very young. I was 18, I think, when I first started treating my first transgender, let's say guy, because he was transitioning into being a woman. But it was very hard because this guy was in his 70s, and some days he would come in dressed in, and we're talking like, I don't know, well, we're talking 30 years ago. I'm 50 coming up. So when I was 18, so a long time ago, in the early 90s, I was treating him, and he would come in dressed often as a man. We would do his electrolysis. Sometimes he would come in dressed as a woman, but he would have partial beard so that I knew what I was working on. That used to freak out some of the kids that were down in the hair salon waiting to get their hair cut. It was a thing, and it was a really big way of me recognizing what this meant in society and how hard it was for him. And what was even odder about this at the time was that he actually was a relation to a guy that my grandfather used to run a business with. So there was this whole kind of reality around that. And then he passed away. And when he passed away, we got a call. I got a call from his grandson, who was a similar age to me, who said, we found, my dad asked me to give you a call. We found your card in my granddad's wallet, and you obviously meant a lot to him. And I wonder, he just wanted to let you know he's passed away, and if you wanted to come to the funeral, you would be more welcome. And I was like, what did you think I did for the? I was like, it's like sideways glance, because I know full well that they didn't know his story, and it was like, oh, how can I show up? Like, I didn't even know. So anyway, needless to say, I didn't go, but I've been that shoulder to cry on. I've been the cheerleader. I've been a trusted ally. I still am. I've held the hands of friends as they stepped into new versions of themselves, and never once did I withhold love or reverence or respect. I took these women in my life out, and we went on the town, and we had a great time. My business partner 10 years ago, 12 years ago, showed up one day, having always been very well dressed man, in a skirt and ladies' boots. I had to kind of explain it to my sister at the time, who was a little bit like, what's going on here? And has now fully transitioned. And within that family, their daughter has also fully transitioned into a man. And so like there's a whole family there that I've had that beautiful experience with. And I'm also witnessing some of my friends having to deal with much younger girls wanting to, in this instance, girl wanting to make the big choice to live as a man, and already considering that within a year she will be able to get hormones from the doctor at a time when, yes, she has an idea of who she is and her identity, but there's so much more around and it's such a big subject that actually this is kind of one of the reasons why I made the decision, because I don't know enough. I was getting caught up in the world of names. I had somebody constantly telling me I was getting it wrong, my language wasn't right, like, you're cisgendered, Laura. I was like, but I'm not cisgendered, I'm a woman. I know who I am, and I'm very lucky, and I feel fortunate that I know who I am, even though I don't have a womb anymore because it was removed 10 years ago. Like, I know who I am in and of myself. And I've struggled as a woman in my own body for many, many years. So I honestly can have absolute compassion for anyone going through any situation around their body. So no, I really want to kind of bring that home, that this is not about being anti-trans. This is about being pro safety, pro integrity, and pro healing. Now, when I say pro safety, instantly I know you're all going to think, wow, that's because you don't think a trans woman is safe because they may still have their male body parts. That's not what I mean. And it's so hard to get people to listen to that. That is not what I mean at all. I don't see any trans woman particularly is unsafe. I've been in women only spaces with trans women. I absolutely adore the women that used to come to Woman Fest, you know, like that. It was a different space that was created. And you know, we had queer spaces and we had trans spaces and we had spaces that were there, you know, and it was very, very inclusive and all encompassing, but the work was different. The work was different. And so, you know, I spoke openly to many of the women in our community there were trans women in our community when I made this decision, and every single one of them backed me, because I said to them, you know, this isn't, when I say safety, I don't mean keeping women safe from you. I mean, I can't necessarily keep you safe if you rock up and a woman decides that actually you still being in a male body triggers her and she can't deal with that because that brings up things for her, then I can't keep you safe in that space either. And so it, like, when I talk safety, it wasn't about, you know, trans women are unsafe. It was about, how do we create the safest, deepest, most beautiful space that we can, held with women, because we have had the same experiences. I can't understand. I can listen and I can have compassion and I can have kindness and I can be an ally to somebody going through that process to becoming who they truly feel they are. But it's hard for me to know. I haven't had their lived experience. So this is kind of the other aspect of that, when kind of allyship turns into anger. And this is where it gets difficult. This is what I found difficult. This experience that I had at the Mind Body Spirit Festival last week. A trans woman approached me, quite aggressive, quite demanding, and said, "Are you following government rules?" Now, this was a trans woman who was still very masculine in her appearance. Do you accept trans women at your events? And when I said really calmly, actually, I'd love a conversation with you. I'd be really happy to have a conversation about our policy, because we don't accept trans women in our spaces. She didn't want to hear it. She raised her hand quite aggressively in my face, real kind of like in my face, and walked away. Now, I understand that reaction, because as a society, we're not open and welcoming to many people making different choices in their life. And so I get that there's this boundary, this barrier, and this fight, this place where you have to be defensive all of the time. But that's also a really masculine trait. And I know that trait because I was living in it. My teacher, God rest her soul, who passed away a few weeks ago, used to say to me, "Laura, you have the most home defenses of anyone I ever know. You don't always have to get in the ring." Because every time she would bring something to me, I'd be like, "No, not dealing with that. Don't want to go there." And it was like a total defense. So I understand it. But that kind of reaction, that's not what womanhood looks like to me. That's what entitlement looks like. And here's the truth that I've witnessed over and over. The trans women I've known that are truly rooted in their own identity don't react this way. They're not shouting it from the rooftops. Many of them don't want to go to trans spaces. They don't want to go to rallies. They don't want to stand up. They just go about their lives, getting on with their lives, not because they're ashamed of it, but because actually they're really just living their life. They've chosen to live as a woman and they understand why we've made this choice. And actually, in fact, many of them, like I say, told me, thank you for saying it. We need spaces of healing too, but this isn't ours. You know, over time, I will create some specific spaces for trans women because I want to sit and open that doorway and allow a space and have a space that's open for that conversation. And we do have mixed spaces, but for now, I can't serve everybody. I'm just me. Then there's somebody I've got to know beautifully. Her name's Kaz. You know, her story, she shared it the other week on social media, and I'm sure I shared it through our community. But Kaz is a woman, born female, lives female, but presents in a more masculine way, short hair, practical clothes, her own style. And recently she was in a women's toilet queue. She's a woman. She would be in a women's toilet queue. And a man in the men's line starts shouting at her, telling her she was in the wrong place. Hey, you're in the wrong place. Men's is over here. Tapped her on the shoulder, came over to her and tried to really humiliate her. She turned around, clearly a woman, in a queue full of women. She could tell she was in a queue full of women. And you know, in the end, she hesitated. What do I need to do? Do you need me to show me my tits so that I can go and pee in peace? And he was like, no, of course not. And then clearly his wife came out, the ladies, and was really embarrassed and was like, come on, like we're going. But that is the reality now that we live in, a culture where people feel entitled to question who we are, what we look like, and where we belong. And it's not just exhausting, it's unsafe and it's not okay. I don't agree with the reality that's in the world. You know, if you fully live as a woman, like, you know, then actually you fully live as a woman. If you present masculine in any way and you're a woman, you're a woman. You know, I also witnessed a very clearly a woman in a woman's body going into the men's toilet. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Like there was so much this weekend presented so much to me. It was beautiful and it was lovely in its own way. And I was like, wow, what did that bring up in me? And I was a bit like, wow, like that's I've just experienced that and witnessed it in another direction. So, you know, this for me is why we need spaces that don't apologize for their clarity. I have one other experience at the Mind Body Spirit Festival, and I will share it with you. And this one is even more wobbly and controversial for me. So, yeah, please forgive me if this really triggers you. Take full radical responsibility for your trigger because I've taken full radical responsibility for my trigger in this situation. There was a trans woman. Again, still very masculine. You would absolutely know that they were a trans woman. They weren't, you know, many of the trans women I know, you wouldn't even know. Like you just wouldn't know. They go about their lives. You wouldn't know. They are so feminine in their way. This was clearly a trans woman, still very masculine in their way, in lots of ways. Walking around in a maternity dress with a maternity belly, a big maternity belly, not just a kind of like and rubbing their bump and holding their tummy and laughing like they were, you know. And of course, I can understand that that is a deep wound right there, right? That is a deep um a deep desire. I guess you know, it's hard to know. What did it trigger in me? It triggered in me this reality that there are many women in the world that cannot have children. There are many women in the world that are going through fertility issues right now that are working really hard. There are many women in the world, like myself, who've had 8 miscarriages, 2 medical terminations to get to having my 2 amazing children. And I get that, you know, for some, that desire is so big that it's all encompassing. And it brings up so much emotion for me because that is my story, and it just triggered me to see this. And I'm going to say it, right? Because they are clearly still in a man's body. This man, this woman, this is where I get confused, right? Like, they are a woman. Yeah, I get it that they see themselves as a woman, but they are still in a man's body. And yet here they are. What felt to me like, okay, you could see it as 2 ways: honoring that glory, but also taking away something that is so deeply feminine and can only be that way. Really triggered me. And they avoided me all weekend. I kept seeing them walk past. It was like, well, maybe they were avoiding the Hare Krishnas, I don't know. But if you haven't seen last week's podcast, you could probably go and understand that better. But it triggered me, and I had to really sit with that. So, like I say, the Mind Body Spirit Festival in London gave me so much to consider and think about. So what I'm here, I guess, and what I want to really share with you is that we're not meant to serve everybody. In my own personal work, I hold mixed spaces all the time. I coach women, I coach men, predominantly women, because I'm a woman and I'm in a woman's body, and I've been through the menopause, and I'm kind of, you know, I've been through years of issues around you know, my fertility and kind of life, and you know, I know how to work with women. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't work with a man if they came to me. It wouldn't mean that I wouldn't work with a trans person if they came to me. It wouldn't mean that I don't work with queer, gay, kind of like in my own work, I have had all kinds of beautiful, complex humans in ceremony with me. Like, that is my personal work. But Sacred Sister is different. Sacred Sister is for the woman who has bled, who has birthed, who has grieved, who has been silenced, ashamed, or broken by the weight of this world. And this space is for her. And no, I won't dilute that. Unapologetically, I won't. Because if I do, I can't hold the depth that's required. I can no longer look into a woman's eyes as she speaks the unspeakable and guarantee that she is surrounded by those who truly understand her. Not meant to serve everyone. And in saying no, we actually deepen our yes. So, sister, if you're still listening, thank you. Thank you for holding this with me. I know that when I first made this statement, I was expecting a backlash, and there was very little backlash. But what there was a lot of solidarity and a lot more stepping in from the women who felt safer that I had made this statement. There was no confusion anymore. And I think that's the bit for me. It's like clarity brings that space. You know, I really thank you for walking with nuances when the world screams in absolutes. Thank you for understanding that boundaries are not cruelty. They are care in this situation. And I will never be everyone's cup of tea. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's taken me a long time to dive deep around the healing of people pleasing and not wanting to upset anybody and wanting to make sure everybody's okay and towing the line. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I know that that's okay. But I will always speak the truth. I will always speak my truth, and I expect the same from you. And I will always protect what is sacred. We honour all humans on their path. And we choose to serve the women who carry these stories in their bones. And this is our why, And this is our circle, and this is who we truly serve. If this lands in your heart, if you are one of the women who longs for a space where you don't have to explain, where your body is not up for debate, where your story is seen without translation, then come and find us. Come find your place around our kitchen table, because you are always welcome here, always. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. This week, I'm actually recording our first guest podcast. I have a very long list of guest podcasts waiting to be recorded, but I'm bringing you a beautiful podcast from a sister who set up an amazing walking group that has just grown and grown and grown, and she is an inspiration. So I will be bringing that to you next week. And for now, I want to just remind you that if this has triggered something in you, please bring it to us. Bring it to me. My door is always open. My heart is always open. That gets me into trouble sometimes, but it always is. And I want you to know that my deep desire is for a world where love is the overarching emotion and energy that we all bring, because only then will we truly make a difference in this world. Sending you all so much love. Laura, signing out. Take care.